please respond concisely. 1 minute.
Right.
1 minute to the candidates.
I'll be going along, so once you put your hands up, I know who you are, so I'll come to you. Teddy Roosevelt.
Tony Maloney.
I think you mentioned my name twice. Thank you, John. Everybody. Now, Teddy Roosevelt once said, when making a speech and giving an answer, be sincere, be brief, and be seated. In this manner, please keep it to under a minute. You can make a question to all the candidates or to one candidate. In the interest of moving along, no multi-part questions, please, just one question. I'm going to start on my left. Sir?
Thank you. I don't need a microphone.
No, please, because we're
We
waiting.
all know that Bloomberg for the last 12 years did not produce a single low-income house. This is an absolute record. And it's a shame for the city of New York that they voted him 3 times. There is one of the candidates who is not here tonight. And this guy is supported by the White House. Let's say this is not true, that he's supported by the White House. Why he doesn't say so? Why he doesn't come out to say, hey guys, there is a mistake. I'm against these people. Oh, by the way, I'll give you a numerical example. Right now, to build an apartment in Astoria, you gotta spend more than 100,000 in land. This is determined by what they call the developmental rights. If I double the rights and somebody can do 40 apartments instead of 20, he's gonna make 2 million.
But, so your question,
Question so that someone.
my question is, the guy who's not here got supported today by the Union of the Teachers. Okay?
Can I answer?
How do you
can I answer the
find
question?
this situation? Is there a teacher here? Does he know his position? Thank you.
I just want, I'll answer the question because Costa is not here. All I can answer the question from his standpoint is that he was invited to be here. He chose not to be here. And it's up to you to make a decision about what that means to you as voters. Does anybody else want to answer the question that was addressed to Costa? Does anybody else want to answer the question? Any of the candidates want to address the question addressed to Costa?
I think it was a statement.
Well, there's a question, there's an implied question that the city council member should have the ability.
You know, somebody gets supported by the machine, as they say, and what do you say about it?
Well, it's unfortunate when people think they're above the community just because they have certain endorsements. They think it's not necessary to actually reach out to the average voter and get a message out. Like I said, I've been requesting a debate, a primary Democratic debate, and unfortunately, Councilor Sardinides thinks he's a shoo-in and it's not important to address the community. And I'm standing not on my behalf, but on his behalf, and unfortunately, the community doesn't have the opportunity to actually hear where he stands and what he represents.
Good evening, my name is Alan Clark. And see, my problem is very simple. You know, I had an accident where I had to have hip replacement. So they put me on SSD. But the problem I have is that the money I get from SSD is not enough to pay the rent. So they don't want me to work, and I can't work as fast as I used to. I'm getting older. I go out here and look, somebody said about the housing being very high. Yes, it is too high. This is crazy. I'm 60 years old, and I can't even afford to live nowhere. I had to come all the way to the Reality House to get help, and I'm struggling to stay abreast. And I'm looking for somebody to do something about that.
Everybody know what Reality House is? It's a nonprofit organization that houses about 30 veterans. So you're a veteran from what war?
It's an excellent question, and I want to piggyback with what Gus Francis said. It's a shame that Costa's not here because he's being supported by jobs from New York, Manhattan developers that want to develop high-end luxury homes on 27th Avenue like they did in Long Island City. And we need politicians, from the mayor down,
to say to these people, you can make money. Listen, this is a capital economy. Everyone is entitled to make a buck. But when we give you a tax abatement for 10 years or 20 years, we want a certain percentage of affordable housing. And they always back out of it. They always get out of it somehow. They cut deals. You can read the papers. They cut deals. They get out of it. And that's got to stop. And then they say, well, we'll give affordable housing. What is affordable housing? $1,800 a month for a one-bedroom apartment? Who can afford that? Who can afford that? When they are asking people to work at minimum wage at a rate of $7.25 an hour, you think you could raise a family with kids and pay for an apartment? This is a tragedy, and you gotta stop special interests. You gotta stand up and vote. Independent people. I think we're all here. I think we've shown up on this tonight. And we're all independent. We're going to fight for you, and you've got to make that choice. And hopefully, you'll be there on election day. Thank you.
My name is Nicodemus. I'm the former president of the Federation of Islamic Societies, a federation who has 110 organizations, members. I'd like to address this question to all the candidates. 114 precinct is pretty busy these days. What would you do to decrease crime? What do you feel about stop and frisk?
I'll try to keep this short. I'm sad that our police force in New York City was cut from around 39,000 officers down to about 34,000 officers. 39,000 officers to 34,000 officers. What this does is it puts an undue burden on the limited number of officers that we have with the 114 and other precincts throughout Queens and New York City. What I would do is, I believe we need a stronger police force. I believe we need more police officers, because if we have more police officers, they can work within the community. We can have community policing. We can reduce the number of multiple stop and frisks where somebody is stopped multiple times and then they feel they're being targeted by the police. I mean, that's unfortunate. I'm not against stop and frisk, but I do see it when it was used during the Giuliani administration. It was an average of 97,000 stops per year, and then under Bloomberg's administration, it was increased to 604,000 stops per year. I mean, you know animosity is going to happen when somebody's being stopped multiple times, because, and William Bratton said that because of the reduced police force, there was this thing called Operation Impact, where police officers from other areas were brought into areas that they weren't familiar with. So when they see somebody, they are not familiar with that person, they don't know that person, they live right down the block, and they're going to stop them over and over again. And this has brought animosity towards the police. And we want our police force to protect us and not have people not want the police there to protect us. I'm in favor of stop and frisk. I just do think that it should be reduced. You know, it should be used 604,000 times.
I think we need to keep the answers focused, please. The stop and frisk is a constitutional, it's law of the land. There is no such thing as no stop and frisk. There were two issues that were brought before the city council. One was to have an inspector general, and the second one was a change in the profiling definitions to include male, female, and other crazy things that were added so that the police department has its hands tied for who they can stop. And the reason that became even more important was because the federal judge said that there were some mistakes made by the police department. She permitted the lawsuits to go through in favor of the people who were saying that they were discriminated against. So stop, question, and frisk is a settled discussion. The issue was before the city council, and the question really should be: would you have vetoed the two, we'll call them bills at the moment, or not?
Starting down here, both those bills would not have addressed the issue. I would not have voted for Inspector General. To me, it's creating a new bureaucracy. bureaucracy. I'm for shrinking the city agencies. And the other profiling, to me, it's just to, a lot of the city council members are lawyers. You know, they're going to be out of work, so now they can do their civil lawsuits on police officers and say, oh, you were profiling. So it gives them work after they did the city council.
I believe that passing these laws has it's tying the hands of the police. It's going to make it difficult for them to do the job to protect us. Some of the issue is it's going to become personally liable. And why would they come out there and protect you and help you if every move they make, you can possibly get personally sued? I take issue with that. A lot of these police officers, they get a bad rap. They're out there doing their job. They're out there to look out for you, to take care of you. We need to educate our children also to have a good relationship with the police officers. My children know the officers' names in my neighborhood. They say hello to them. There needs to be some kind of in the community. There needs to be outreach from the police to the community so they're not received so negatively. I was for stop and frisk because I was in my neighborhood. I noticed that it did change when it was instated, but I'm worried that everything's going to come back the way that it was a while ago. There was a point in Astoria, my end. I lived by 27th Avenue, and it was dangerous. It was unsafe at some point. I think everyone benefited from it. I think our neighborhood is way safer than it used to be. Maybe that's not just the reason. Maybe there's more. Maybe I'm incorrect. But I'm a little worried that things may change. And the Inspector General, though, I do disagree with that. I do feel, though, that the police department needs to increase their foot patrol, and they also need to be out more during school dismissals to protect our children coming and going from school. I don't think that it should just be limited to when bars are let out or the middle of the night. That 2 to 5 period, when our kids are coming and going from school, that's when they should be out there in the street watching our kids come and go.
Before Gus answers the question, I just wanted to make another statement here about this topic. It's a complicated issue, but it isn't that complicated. The problem is that the laws that were passed will give people who feel they were discriminated against the opportunity to sue the New York City Police Department in a court of law, which means that the criminal justice system, law enforcement, law protection, prevention, everything shifts to the judges rather than to the law enforcement community. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that the question really isn't whether the police department has a right to stop someone, and if there's a question about what they're doing, to frisk them. That's not the issue here. The issue is only one of prejudice and one of the changing of the definitions of prejudice so that the policeman cannot say a white male or a male committed that crime. They can't put that out because gender has become a prejudicial description, which is like, how do you do that?
Well, and some of you said, but also we got to keep in mind that it's still not going to change the point that if anybody wants to sue, they can sue. It's a right for anybody to sue. And for the last, I think, 3 years, there have been almost 5 million complaints filed. Personally, it's not a matter if I agree or disagree, because it's been around since 1960. Stop and frisk has been around. It's been used throughout the whole nation. The problem is when, again, this administration took it from what was on the books as a tool for the police department to actually catch true criminals and turned it into a status, not into a quota. Just like the education system. Once you turn something into a quota and you're being told to go out there and bring back numbers, who pays the price? The ones that are underprivileged, the ones that cannot defend themselves. So what happened right now, the police department needs every tool possible, but it can't be used as a tool to create numbers. And what happened is that during this election, they started focusing on stop and frisk instead of really focusing on the real issues. And what is that? You want crime to go down? Create jobs. Create something where people can be occupied. That's what the focus is about. And this is what the news media, unfortunately, and the politician, and this administration has tried to take away from the folks of the issue. And getting back to the housing issue, we have over $1 billion sitting on a federal level that this city has not touched. If we were able to bring that money into the city, that's one way that we can start bringing some of the rates down for the apartment. $1 billion, and nobody has done anything about it. And I'm going to be asking Carol Maloney, our Congresswoman, why something has not been done about this. And I think every constituent in public housing should be doing the same thing. Write to your congressperson, because it's on a federal level. We want that money. The city needs that money. The people need that money.
I read a book called Cop on the Hood, and it talked about an idea of policing green. And that idea was getting cops out of their patrol cars and out on the street. The beat cops we talked about. It was mentioned about Operation Impact. Part of the problem with Operation Impact is it's rookie cops. They know that they're going to get this assignment and that in 16, 18 months, 2 years, they're gone. So they have absolutely no incentive to get to know the neighborhood. What I would like to see is more beat cops who know the neighborhood. I live directly across the street from Reality House. I live on the other side of Two Coast Community Garden. A lot of my friends from Astoria houses tell me how when they were younger, they knew the local cops. They invited them to the barbecues, the 4th of July barbecues, to watch the fireworks along the promenade. I think that's what we need. As far as stop and frisk, I understand the issues that Arthur's raising. I understand the question of the audience member. I have to tell you, I'm opposed to racial profiling. I'm opposed to police officers stopping people because of the color of their skin or because of their sexual orientation or their gender identity. I think we have a problem. But I also agree with Gus. One of the problems that police have right now is just like teachers, they're being asked to deliver numbers. A lot of their job is about response time, how fast they get after a crime already happened. It's about writing tickets and citations. It's not about crime prevention. And of course, it's those beat cops who know their local neighborhood who can help prevent crime. If they see trouble brewing, they can mitigate it, they can facilitate it because they know the people involved. And yes, also, we all know that poverty is a significant issue in big chunks of New York City. And yes, we need to invest in real jobs. I'm worried that we're getting rid of our last manufacturing zones along the waterfront. I would rather see green manufacturing jobs, and that's certainly a part of the plan. But just to address your question about crime, hopefully I've mentioned some of the ideas I would like to see to help decrease crime. Thank you again for your question.
There's no question to me that stop, question, and frisk has been instrumental in attacking gangs, and attacking drug dealers, and taking guns off the street. And that's important for everyone. I don't care whether you live in the projects or you live in a high-end house. We all want to know that when we get home at night, we don't have a bullet flying in the air and could hit either us or our children or our families and friends. Queensbridge had an incident not too long ago where a child was in her apartment, a young child, and was hit by a stray bullet. We don't want that. If we hit that level, then this city is going down very fast. There's no question we don't want people paying on people. We don't want officers targeting minorities. And I think that we have the mechanisms, answering one of your questions about the monitor. We don't need the monitor. That's another level of bureaucracy. We have the district attorneys in each county to make sure that the officers are behaving properly. We have the Civilian Complaint Review Board. And every time an officer has to do a stop and frisk, they have to fill out, I think it's a Q125 card, why they stopped the person, what was their suspicion, and what resulted from it. Now, not every stop and frisk is going to result in an apprehension of drugs, drug paraphernalia, or a gun. But it creates a fear, to me, it creates the fear in a person who is attempting to commit a crime, thinking about committing a crime, or who has just committed a crime and trying to run away. It creates a fear that we need to instill in people that have committed crimes or are going to commit crimes. And everybody's right. I used to remember as a kid seeing the beat cop. We used to know the officer's name first name. We call the officer Tony or whatever. They'd be coming down on a bicycle. That has eroded. We've had police officers that don't get out of their cars unless they're looking to stop and frisk or arresting someone. That's got to come to an end. We've got to get the police back on the streets, getting them into the neighborhoods on a friendly relationship. For some reason, that's all dissolved, and we've got to come back to that. And that's really by increasing the number of police on our streets. Once we do that, we'll have walking cops, beat cops, cops on bicycles, and you create that level of trust where people are not intimidated by the police. That's what the problem is. It's about intimidation. And while intimidation is important from a law perspective, because you will eliminate or stop crime, we've got to create a fraternity where we feel comfortable talking to a cop about a problem, alerting a cop of a suspicious individual in the neighborhood or drug activity in an apartment. That's crucial to our safety and the future of this community being a well-respected and great community that everybody talks about because ultimately it's safe. That's what we want, safety.
Johnny?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ronnie Minor, community advocate from Astoria-Q&A. Just real quickly on stop and frisk. If you look at the numbers of stop and frisk, only 2% were actually guilty of some crime, and it was both black and Hispanic. So we have a problem with that issue. We'll talk about that another time. However, we need to address it. My question is to Mr. Princess and to Mr. Stefano. How will you address the issue with developers and contractors not abiding by the Housing Urban Law of 1968 and the Vicinity Hiring Act that Congress passed on January 5th, 2010, that mandates that housing residents and the surrounding community is entitled to contracts and employment, more specifically 30% of the employment, 3% of the non-contractual work, and 10% of the total dollar amount.
I don't think it's specific enough, Brian.
Mr. Minor, thank you for that question. Being on the community board has given me the opportunity to get to know some of these developers. And as you're aware, I've already sat at the table with them and made that very clear that it's going to be very important. Like I said, Astoria Houses has the highest unemployment rate in New York City right now. So since they're going to be developing that, one of the things that I request is that they do sit down with the community leaders to make sure that those jobs that could be filled by the local residents should be filled by the local residents. That's number one. Number two, I requested that they build a school, they build community centers, but not only within their own complex, but also to the adjacent community, where now you're not dividing again the community, but actually start bringing the community together. So that's two things that I've done already. The final thing is, I think I'm the only candidate, I believe I'm the only candidate that's made it very clear from day one, that besides my regular office, I will have a second office in the vicinity of Astoria Houses where this new development is going up, to make sure that the city council is present throughout this whole process, and also where people can actually come and meet with me and speak to me on a one-to-one basis.
Does that come out of the member item budget?
Sorry?
Is that a member item budget?
No, but I'll try to make it with my own budget to make sure. Because
So
again,
that would be a member item budget.
Every councilman gets a specific budget for his office. So it all depends, how expensive or how big you want your office. Comparing getting one large space where you're paying $3,000 versus two spaces where you're paying $1,500.
Just don't pull a Charlie Rangel.
Absolutely.
I think it's an excellent question. This city has for too long been giving the rich tax breaks, all kinds of advantages. This is another example of where you give the super developers tax abatements, discounts, all kinds of programs that they really don't need, but the city gives it to them to create this housing. Yet I think it's an injustice to your community and other communities throughout the city where they don't hire the local residents to get involved in the building projects, which they try to push the local residents away and try to hopefully push them out of the community, which we see throughout the city, whether you go to Harlem or any other part of the city. They try to push the people, the locals away. And we've got a group doing that, Jobs in New York, Jobs for New York. That's their agenda. That's got to come to an end. But how does it come to an end? You get the advocates together, the council people, your assembly people, your senator, your congressperson, your U.S. senator. They have to go to bat for the community. They can't be out there days before an election. They have to be there fighting for you 365 days out of the year. And that's important, because to preserve your community, we have to fight for your community. We can't let there be a continuous divide in this community, and we can't let anyone push you out of where you raise your families, where you've lived forever, and that's got to come to an end. Let's take away the tax abatements unless these developers commit to employing people, creating affordable housing, so they don't push you out of the market. Because once those buildings succeed, you see what's happening in Long Island City, everyone is fleeing. The people that would normally live there have to flee because everything goes up. Thank you.
Tony Arcabacho is running for Borough President, by the way.
Thank you. I just want to say, first of all, I don't have any issues. I have big shoes to fill with the vacating that position, but I'd love to all of you. My question to you is that I know that in your next, whoever does become the next city councilman, in your tenure, there's going to be a vote that's going to be required to allow immigrants to vote, permanent resident immigrants to vote in local elections. And thanks to Tony, my sister doesn't have to worry about that anymore, because after 53 years, and now she's an American citizen. Thank you, Tony. But like her, she was in this country for 53 years as a permanent resident. So my question is, how will you vote?
Lynn and Daniel.
Thank you for your question. I think one of the issues that doesn't come up enough in these debates is that around election reform and removing barriers to participation. So I absolutely support Intro 410, which is legal resident non-citizen voting. If you live here and you work here and you pay taxes here, then you should have a vote in your local elections. We used to have it here in New York City. It ended when we abolished school boards. We can have so many more people participate in the democratic process. I'm a Green Party candidate. I am outside the two-party political machine. To me, the idea of diverse viewpoints around the legislative table make better public policy. The more people who can vote and have a say in their local government and their local participatory budgeting process, the better. So that's an easy answer for me. It's on my website. I fully support it. Thank you for raising the issue.
The company I work for runs properties in Germany, and if I ever got restationed to manage those properties in Germany, I would not expect Germany to say, okay, we're going to give you the right to vote in German politics. I don't even think I would pay that much attention to politics. I believe that voting is a right to the citizens of the United States. I don't believe in permanent residents or non-citizens voting in municipal elections. I do believe that if we were to have nonpartisan elections, when I mentioned the superintendent, if the superintendents of the school districts, if they were to be voted on to answer for how well the schools do or how poorly the schools do in local elections, then I am open to nonpartisan elections for permanent residents and non-citizens that are permanent residents to vote for the school board and as superintendents. That I'm fine with. But as far as general elections, voting for president, voting for city council, voting for state offices, I believe it's something that only the citizens should decide. And if you want to participate in the elections, go to somebody like Tony and get your citizenship. It may take a while, it may take be a process, but I mean, that's part, you came to America to be in this country, become an American and represent your nation as an American.
Please, the floor to read